Imagine you are old, not just in years, but in understanding. You've lived long enough to watch dreams rise, collapse, and reshape themselves into something quieter, something truer. And now, in the silence of that wisdom, I want you to picture something impossible. You are floating in a spacecraft, 1 billion kilometers from everything you've ever known. Outside your window hangs Saturn, vast, pale, and indifferent. Its rings stretch like frozen echoes of time itself, wide enough to swallow worlds, yet thin enough to vanish if seen from the wrong angle. It is beautiful, and it is the end. Not because you chose it, but because the universe chose for you. When you're young, distance feels conquerable. A mountain is just something to climb. An ocean is just something to cross. A dream is just something to chase. But Saturn doesn't care about your determination. It sits on average 1.4 billion kilometers away from the sun. Numbers like that don't feel real. They slip through the mind like water through fingers. So let's make it human. If you could drive there, just you, a road and endless time, at 100 kilometers per hour without ever stopping, it would take you over 1,600 years. Empires would rise and fall while you were still pressing the gas pedal. Languages would evolve, borders would dissolve, entire civilizations would forget why you even started. And still, you wouldn't be there yet. There is a moment somewhere along that journey when Earth disappears, not dramatically, not all at once. It shrinks, first to a marble, then a grain, then nothing. And in that quiet vanishing, something inside you begins to shift. Because you realize something we spend our entire lives avoiding. Everything you've ever loved exists on something that can disappear from view. Your childhood home, the faces of your parents, the laughter of your friends. All of it contained on a fragile sphere now lost in darkness. Astronauts orbiting Earth often speak of the overview effect, a sudden understanding of how small and interconnected everything is. But imagine that effect stretched over 7 years. 7 years of watching home fade into abstraction. 7 years of knowing you are not coming back. That's not exploration, that's transformation. When you're young, moving forward feels free. You don't think about the cost. But physics keeps a ledger, and it never forgets. To reach Saturn, engineers rely on something called the rocket equation, a rule so unforgiving it borders on philosophical. Every kilogram of fuel requires more fuel to move it, and that extra fuel requires even more fuel. It's a spiral, a burden that grows with every attempt to escape it. Even Cassini, one of humanity's greatest robotic explorers, couldn't go directly. It had to wander for 7 years, borrowing momentum from planets like a traveler begging rides from passing strangers. It looped, past worlds, it waited, it adjusted, and only then did it arrive. Now imagine replacing that probe with a human life, with food, water, hope, fear, memory. The weight becomes unbearable, not just physically, but existentially, because every step forward demands something in return. And eventually, the cost becomes everything. Time changes the body. You already know that. Your joints remind you. Your breath reminds you. The mirror reminds you. But space accelerates that truth. In microgravity, the body begins to forget itself. Bones dissolve, losing 1 to 2% of their density each month. Muscles shrink, the heart weakens, vision blurs, even the brain begins to change. And this isn't over decades, this is over years. A 7-year journey to Saturn doesn't just age you, it reshapes you into something that cannot return, something that no longer belongs to Earth. It's a quiet kind of exile, not imposed by force, but by physics. There is something else out there, something you cannot see, something you cannot feel until it's too late. Radiation. Beyond Earth's magnetic shield, space is not empty. It is alive with energy, violent, relentless. Every second, particles slam into your body at near light speed, tearing through DNA, rewriting the code of your existence. On Earth, we are protected. Even astronauts aboard the International Space Station are still shielded. But on the road to Saturn, there is no shelter, only exposure. Over 7 years, the accumulated radiation would exceed safe limits multiple times over. Not slightly, not marginally, catastrophically. Memory fades, decision-making slows, cells mutate, and slowly, invisibly, you begin to come apart. Let's say you make it. Against all odds, you arrive. You float above Saturn, staring into its swirling storms. You reach for your radio and say, "We're here." And then you wait. For over an hour, your words travel through the void. Another hour passes before a reply can even begin. A simple conversation takes nearly 3 hours. In an emergency, that delay becomes a lifetime. You are alone, not metaphorically, not poetically, but literally, completely. And maybe, for the first time, you understand something most people spend their lives avoiding. Independence has a breaking point. We are not meant to exist without connection, without response, without someone answering when we speak.
As the scan progresses,
Saturn looks like a destination, but it isn't.
By the shift from green
It has
to
no
critical
surface,
levels of orange
no
and
ground,
red.
no place to stand. Only layers of gas growing denser and hotter until they crush anything that dares to descend. You cannot land. You cannot arrive. You can only orbit, forever circling something you will never truly reach. How many things in life feel like that? Success, recognition, perfection. We chase them. We orbit them. But when we get close, we realize there is nothing solid there. Just pressure, expectation, and collapse. Saturn becomes a mirror, showing us not just the limits of space, but the illusions of ambition. Here is the truth no one wants to hear. Getting to Saturn is hard. Coming back is impossible. Not emotionally, not philosophically, mathematically. To return, you would need fuel. But that fuel must be carried from the beginning, which requires more fuel, which requires more mass, which requires even more fuel. The equation spirals out of control. There is no elegant solution, no clever workaround, no hidden shortcut, only a wall, a boundary written into the fabric of reality. And once you cross it, you don't come back. Most people think Saturn is a planet, a destination, a marvel of rings and storms. But it's not. Saturn is a boundary, a line between what we can dream and what we can reach. A reminder that no matter how advanced we become, some doors remain closed. And strangely, there is peace in that, because if everything were reachable, if every dream were achievable, if every distance could be crossed, then nothing would be sacred.
They know we're here.
Nothing
We
would
have to
be
move the
rare.
rendezvous point immediately.
Nothing would matter. When you are young, you believe life is about expansion, more experiences, more achievements, more distance covered. But when you are old, you begin to understand something different. Life is not about how far you can go. It's about what you choose not to leave behind. Saturn forces that realization. It asks a quiet question. If you could go anywhere, but never return, would you still go? And the older you get, the more complicated that answer becomes. Somewhere, far behind you, invisible now, is Earth. That small, fragile world where every story you've ever heard, every person you've ever loved, every moment that ever mattered exists. Not out here, not among the giants, not in the cold silence between stars, but on that tiny, glowing speck. We spend so much time looking outward, chasing distance, chasing more, that we Forget the miracle we're already standing on. You drift in orbit. Saturn fills your window. Its rings shimmer like time frozen in motion. And for a moment, you feel something unexpected. Not regret, not fear, but clarity. Because you finally understand. The universe is not something to conquer. It is something to witness. And not every place is meant to be reached. Some are meant to remind you where you belong. Saturn will remain there long after we are gone. Unchanged. Unreachable. Unconcerned. And that's okay. Because its true purpose was never to be visited. It was to teach us something we spend our entire lives learning. Home is not where you can go. It's where you can return. And maybe that's enough.